The Renaissance, a time scientists today think was the foundation of our understanding of science. The Renaissance was a time full of art, science, math, astrology, and religion as well. A lot of these things were made too from this, like these. But it was caused to stop something that caused deaths, and this thing was called the Black Plague. You see, the Black Plague symptoms were scary as well, and it was spread by bacteria called Yersinia pestis. What it did to people was they were overcome with fever, unable to keep food down, and delirious from pain. Strangest of all, they were covered in mysterious black boils that oozed blood and pus. They were scarcely unprepared for this, even though they heard of the great pestilence that carved a deadly route along trade routes along the Near and Far East. Even though this Black Plague killed more than 20 million people in Europe, almost one-third of its population, there was hope. The Renaissance happened, which was the real hope. It was like a time full of ingenuity. And in its aspects, it was. When the Renaissance arose, the Black Death actually helped it, and then at the same time. When 20 million people died, it created the deepest recession ever in history. But the good thing about this is before, Europe was overpopulated, and that's not only the good thing. Of course, global demand fell, and cultivation lowered because there were fewer workers, and it focused on more fertile land. You could say the peasants' condition was better due to labor shortages, and that impacted the 20 million deaths. Their wages also improved due to negotiation because of the land being less costly. This all eventually evolved into the Renaissance, as you can see. The Renaissance began around the 14th to 17th century, which actually is around the time the Black Plague ended around 1347 to the 14th century. The Renaissance started in Italy, where it would eventually spread to the rest of Europe. But what happened during that time? A lot. First, art, which was actually one of the great things about the Renaissance. And who better can you get art than this time than Leonardo da Vinci? He created art, like the Mona Lisa or the Final Supper. Leonardo was born on April 15th, 1452, in Vinci, Italy, where he was the son of a prominent attorney and a young peasant girl. What is even more interesting is that he never received a formal education, except basic skills in reading, writing, and math. But he did have many ideas as his ideas diversed, like science. In fact, he thought of things like a bicycle or a flying machine. But these scientific advancement ideas were not understandable, unfortunately for him. But there was another that was an artist called Michelangelo, who made sculptures during this time. Michelangelo was born in March 6, 1475, and died in 1564, a very long time in the Renaissance. His father worked for the Florentine government, and shortly after Michelangelo's birth, his family moved to Florence, which he would consider his true home. Florence was actually a vibrant arts area during the Renaissance, and Michelangelo was apprenticed by Domenico Lario. And a year later, Michelangelo's talents drew the attention of Lorenzo de' Medici, who gave him an invitation to stay in his palatial room. Michelangelo continued to sculpt until his death, which was again 1564. Here are some more of his sculptures. Michelangelo, a little known fact of him is that he wrote poems. Only about 300 of them survive. Here is one of his poems. When the prime mover May sighs, heaven took through death from out of her earthly place. Nature, thou was never fair of face, remained ashamed, and tears were all in eyes. O fate, unheeding my impassioned cries, O hopes fallacious, O thou spirit of grace, where art thou? Earth holds in its embrace thy lovely limbs, thy holy thoughts disguise. Vainly did cruel death attempt to stay the rumor of thy virtuous renown, that leaves water could not wash away. 1,000 leaves, since he hath stricken thee down, speak of thee, not to thee could heaven convey, except through death a refuge and a crown. This was To Victoria Colonna by Michelangelo, a very long poem like his many others. Past art, there are many other things that happened, such as the events in towns where merchants exchanged items and told news. The news came from the exploration around Europe, which spread the Renaissance fundamentally. This is how the Renaissance spread, by sharing information through the merchants, and as you can see, scientists and any other sort of person got to know what was going on through the merchants. But the Renaissance had the root seeds of its own end. Through widespread of art, science, and literacy, An educated class began to question the teachings of the church, which was a very wealthy group. Among these was Martin Luther, who was disturbed at what the church was teaching, as he translated the Bible to find some of the things they were doing were not supported. The wealthy and the noble classes began turning away from the church and discovering a new world, and Da Gama's discovery of the sea route to India shifted trade routes from Italy to Portugal and Europe's west coast. The Protestant Reformation, which was formed by Luther, caused elimination for most of the funding for art, causing the end of the Renaissance.